Curious about lip filler? Whether you want a subtle pout or bold plump, Juvederm lip fillers can give you a customized lip look. Juvederm Volbella XC and Juvederm Ultra XC can last up to a full year with optimal treatment, giving your lips added volume for smooth, natural-looking, and long-lasting results. Whether you're concerned about your thin lips or simply want fuller lips, ask about Juvederm lip fillers at your next appointment with your licensed specialist. And download the Ally app, that's ALLE, the official loyalty program of Juvederm, to save on treatments. For important safety information and to find a licensed specialist, visit Juvederm.com. That's JUVEDERM.com. Not for people with severe allergic reactions, allergies to lidocaine, or the proteins used in Juvederm. Common side effects include injection site redness, swelling, pain, tenderness, firmness, lumps, bumps, bruising, discoloration, or itching. There's a risk of unintentional injection into a blood vessel, which can cause vision abnormalities, blindness, stroke, temporary scabs, or scarring. Talk to a licensed specialist to find out if it's right for you.
This episode is brought to you by Coffee Mate. Coffee Mate is the world's biggest coffee lover because we love all the ways you enjoy. Wait. Coffee Mate can't love coffee more than me. I'm a foodie. I went to Kyoto just for a nitro matcha latte. What? Oh, I have to finish the ad. Coffee Mate, for the love of coffee.
Let's do it.
An 80s flick synonymous with perhaps the most popular action genre of the 80s, the buddy cop movie. In the wake of Lethal Weapon, there were many variations of the formula. Perhaps the most testosterone-fuelled was this 1989 cult classic that paired Sylvester Stallone and Kurt Russell as Los Angeles cops framed by Jack Palance's evil drug lord. With generous helpings of style, odd couple quips, and tons of action, the movie was a box office hit. But behind the scenes, it was a mess, with the producers going through at least 2 directors and 2 cinematographers with a fast-approaching release date and pressure from the studio. So check your stock portfolios, brush up on your English lessons, and keep the mice out of the maze as JB Huffman and I discuss Tango and Cash from 1989 on this episode of the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast.
When 2 of LA's top rival cops...
You know me, huh?
Yeah, I hear you're the second best cop in LA.
That's funny. I hear the same thing about you.
Go gunning for trouble. They drive each other crazy. Tango and Cash. Did you sleep with my sister?
I was so drunk. I don't remember, okay?
Sylvester Stallone and Kurt Russell are Tango and Cash. Rated R. Starts Friday, December 22nd.
I'm Tim Williams, the mastermind behind the mic at the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. Joining me on each epic episode is a guest co-host who's as crazy about 80s flicks as they are about wearing parachute pants and solving Rubik's Cubes. We're diving into nostalgic treasures we saw at the local theater, rented on VHS tapes, or discovered on cable TV. From blockbusters that make you say,
I feel the need for speed.
To hidden gems that'll have you screaming,
They're here.
It's a blast to relive these old memories and share our thoughts on what made these movies so special. We reminisce about our first-time watch experiences, share our favorite scenes, and even discover fascinating behind-the-scenes tales about the cast and crew along the way. Haven't hit that subscribe button yet? What are you waiting for?
Come on, do it.
On Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform. And hey, while you're at it, be a pal and drop us a written review along with a 5-star rating to tell us what you think about us.
The sportos, motorheads, geeks, sluts, bloods, wastoids, dweebies, they all adore him. They think he's a righteous dude.
Take a day off and come hang out with us on social media. Just search 80s Flick Flashback on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And don't forget to bookmark 80sflickflashback.com for more gnarly content.
Get out of town. I didn't know you did anything creative.
Want to crank it all the way up to 11? Become a supporter on buymeacoffee.com for only $5 a month.
You? I'll
do not. There is no try.
Click the link in our episode show notes, and while you're there, soak up the extra trivia and fun stuff that didn't make it into today's show. Thanks again for tuning in. Now, let's get right into today's episode.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Well, welcome in, everybody. So glad to have you on this episode of the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. We are right in the middle of our action-packed August. It's been so fun going back and watching these great 80s action movies with some of the biggest action stars of the 80s. And you can't talk about action without talking about Sylvester Stallone and Kurt Russell. And what do you know? They made a movie together that we love to talk about. And me and my co-host have actually talked about it before on his podcast, Manly Movies. Welcome back to the show, JB Huffman. How you doing, JB?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here, especially for this movie, which happens to be our second Kurt Russell movie to do on this show, and our third total, including Tombstone on my show.
Right.
And
right.
also our second Konchalovsky movie.
Yes, because we did the Runaway Train.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. So lots of connections with this one. And so, but this is such a fun movie, and it's funny, like reading all the stuff we'll talk about in storage and the pre-production, like how hard of a movie this was for it to get made and the things that it went through. But, kind of with that knowledge now, rewatching it, you may see it. I see it a little bit differently than I did before, but it doesn't take anything away from the movie for me. Like, it's still a lot of fun. It's just one of those fun action movies that you don't take too seriously. You just enjoy the ride, enjoy the action, enjoy the comedy between the two stars and their chemistry, and just enjoy it.
I think there's a review that I have to mention by Joe Lynch, who is also a director. And he said, which, by the way, this is the last 80s movie. It was made in 1989, the very last week of the year. That was when it released. He says, the last 80s movie is also one of my favorite cinema and cheese.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It really is. Cinema and cheese. That's the best way to put it. I mean, it's just comfort.
It's not healthy for you. It's not something you should eat every day, but you just, every once in a while, you just eat a good old cheesy mac and cheese just to make it through the day. And
Exactly.
I get it.
Exactly.
I get it. All right, well, let's jump into what we normally do on the show. So when did you see Tango and Cash for the very first time?
3 years ago, actually.
Oh, yeah. I remember us talking about this before, I think.
Yeah, I watched it for the first time, and I've watched it a few times since then. Yeah, I love it. Like it's one of those that I just discovered really late, which I did that with a lot of 80s movies because I grew up in the late 80s. I was born in 85.
Right.
So I kind of grew up on, there's a few that I grew up on, like Top Gun and Breakfast Club and stuff like that. But some of them I just discovered later in life, and I'm like, man, where has this been all my life?
Right. Yeah, this is one that I remember going to see in the theater, and one that I was so looking forward to seeing because already being a Stallone fan from the Rocky movies, the Rambo movies, some of the other ones I'd seen of his, and then Kurt Russell I'd seen in Big Trouble in Little China. I had seen in like Overboard, like some comedies, I'd seen him in like a couple of different things. So I was a fan of both of them already. So to know they were doing a movie together that looked like it was going to be a little bit more on the comedy side. So that kind of was appealing to me as well. But just loving action movies too. So I think this is one that probably my dad and I went to go see at the theater, maybe not first weekend, but shortly after it came out. So I remember seeing this in the theater. There's certain scenes like I remember being in the theater and seeing, and just, it was just so much fun. And then of course, when it came out on video, I think this was when I owned a VHS copy of, and I don't know if I ever had a DVD copy of it, but it's one that I watched over and over and over again. Like I've seen it so many times. And even like you said, we did our episode, maybe 2 years ago?
I think so.
Two and a half, maybe, or, because I think you had just watched it, or you recently watched it before when we recorded ours. But I think I've watched it like maybe 2 or 3 times since then. So it's one that I tend to watch, if I'm looking for, like, there's a couple of Stallone movies, like our mac and cheese kind of movies. Like I love Cliffhanger. I love Demolition Man. Like, those just I just want a straight action movie with Stallone, not necessarily a franchise movie where I feel like I gotta watch, one through five or whatever, but just like a standalone that I can just sit down and watch in a good hour and 45, hour and 50 minutes and just get my fill and be done. So
yeah, this is this and Over the Top to me.
Oh yeah,
are like the epitome of Stallone, just like a mac and cheese movie.
Yeah.
Of course, Over the Top has a little bit of sentimental, like.
Oh yeah. It was different. It's a different type of movie. Yeah.
But yeah, it's good stuff.
Oh yeah. So how long had it been since you watched it before we watched it for the podcast?
It was right before we recorded for our last episode, which was in April of 2022.
Okay, so just over 2 years. Yeah, good job. Yeah. So like I said, I know I've watched it again since then. I want to say, I don't know if me and Jerry D did this one, or I know we've talked about it, but I know I've watched it again since we did it for your episode in 2022. So, but watching it again the other day, it, like I said, I've seen it so many times. I don't really need to watch it, but I want to watch it. Like there's certain scenes that I just enjoy, and the quips and that kind of stuff. It's always worth a good rewatch. And if it's one of those, they don't play it on TV anymore, but I know if it was one that would just be on a regular cable channel, if it was on, I would at least sit down and watch it to the next commercial break. I may not make it through the commercial break, but I'm going to watch a good chunk of it while it's on TV.
Yeah, I think it was on like one of those streaming cable things one time. Mm-hmm. And I kind of watched about half of it just to get my feel of it. That was about a year or so ago, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah. If I see that it's on, I'm probably going to watch it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I'm hoping it's one of my favorite scenes, which we'll get to eventually. So, all right, well, let's jump into story origin and pre-production. This is a little bit more lengthy than I expected it to be, but I tried to condense it as much as I could because there was a lot behind the scenes, not so much in the development, but once it got into production, it became a mess, but we'll get there. So the making of Tango and Cash, the original script was actually called The Setup, based on an idea by John Peters and Peter Guber and written by Randy Feldman. Now, Peters and Guber they were producers on a couple other movies that were traditionally more comedies, not necessarily action. So Sylvester Stallone and Patrick Swayze were originally set to star. In March of '89, Andrei Konchalovsky, I was going to mess that up. Go back to our Runaway Train episode where I tried to say it there and probably did it different this time. He was signed on to direct the film. However, Swayze had to drop out due to a knee injury he sustained while filming Roadhouse that he filmed before this. So he was replaced by Kurt Russell. Sylvester Stallone had the original director of photography, Barry Sonnenfeld, fired. Donald E. Thorin, who had previously worked with Stallone on Lockup, took over as Sonnenfeld's replacement. And we'll see that where Stallone likes to work with the same kind of people over and over again. So he likes to replace people that he liked better from other projects. But yeah, I know we talked about, I think on your episode about the Kurt Russell, Patrick Swayze, Mel Gibson kind of connection where they based his character a lot on Martin Riggs from Lethal Weapon, even though it was originally supposed to star Patrick Swayze. I don't think Swayze would have had the same comedy stylings that Russell does that really kind of makes his character as likable, I think, as he is. Not that Swayze's not a likable actor, just he seems to be more of a serious actor. Like he doesn't do that goofyish comedy stuff like Russell has done.
Yeah, he's definitely more of a dramatic actor. And you can see it from his most, prominent roles of like, Dirty Dancing and Roadhouse. I mean, he's just like this stone cold, like, I could not see him in this role at all.
Yeah.
I could see him more of the Murtaugh role than the Riggs, like.
Yeah. It's like, and it's funny because seeing Stallone be the straight guy, the straight man, like being the, not really trying to break the rules, the more, button down suit, I think that was one of the things that was the appeal for me to see the movie, was to see Stallone play a different character than I was used to seeing him play. Like seeing him more straight laced and being the straight man was good, was appealing to me. Producer John Peters fired director Konchalovsky after nearly 3 months of filming due to a dispute over the movie's ending. Konkolowski wanted to give the film a more serious and realistic tone, while Peters preferred a goofier and campier approach. This difference in vision led to an untenable relationship between the two. Konkolowski also refused to agree to what was referred to as increasingly insane demands from Peters. Demand from Peters. The film was in disarray from the beginning, and by the halfway point of the shoot, Peters and Konkolowski were no longer speaking. Although the official reason for his firing was cited as going over budget, supporting actor Brian James stated that it was not his fault and that he did not deserve to be fired. Konkolowski praised Sylvester Stallone, who played a crucial role in holding the project together amid the chaos on set. By the end of principal photography, Stallone was unofficially working as a producer, director, writer, and star. The director was eventually replaced by Albert Mangoli, who filmed the chase and fight scenes in the ending. Reportedly, executive producer Peter McDonald, who was also one of the film's second unit directors, took over directing the movie before Magnoli was brought in. A year earlier, McDonald had to step in as director on Stallone's previous movie, Rambo 3, after Stallone fired the director on that one. So, yeah, which, I mean, Stallone has talked about his kind of mid to late 80s era where he was not known as the easiest guy to work with. Like he said, his ego was way bigger than it should have been. He might have been on some substances that were altering his reality, maybe some as well. So yeah, he just, and he's always been known as kind of not really a control freak, but he likes things done a certain way, which is why, he tends to direct and write a lot of his own stuff that he does or rewrites. And, they talked about, some movies he's pretty much directed himself, even though he's given other people the credit, which I guess Kurt Russell did the same thing for Tombstone, but that's, we talked about that one already too, but
I think I read a story one time when that Stallone originally hired a professional boxer to play the Mr. T role.
Mm-hmm.
And he told him that he wanted him to punch him.
Right.
Like legit. And he was like, I'm not doing this because I don't want to get fired. But then Stallone kept pushing.
Mm-hmm.
And he finally did. And he gave him like a kind of an easy jab into the ribs. And he was fired the next day.
Yeah, didn't he like break a rib or crack a rib from the hit or something like that? Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Just because you're in like physique shape doesn't mean you're in boxing shape and can take those kind of hits. Yeah, for
exactly.
Sure.
Oof.
Yeah. All right. So for post-production, after facing multiple production challenges, including director changes, reshoots, and editing issues, the final version barely made its deadline for release and was shipped to theaters just in time. Warner Brothers ordered the removal of some of the death scenes to avoid issues with the MPAA because of the original cut of Cobra was actually, they had to cut that down. So they did some more edits. They were afraid that was going to happen again with this one. So they cut some stuff back. Writer Jeffrey Boehm did numerous rewrites on the script and was unhappy with the final product. Behind-the-scenes problems led to a crew member describing the production as the worst organized and most poorly prepared film they had ever worked on. The film ended up exceeding its budget by over $20 million and had to be completely re-edited by editor Stuart Baird before its theatrical release. Tango and Cash was one of the many films that Baird was brought in to work on as an editing doctor when studios such as Warner Brothers were unhappy with the initial cuts from the filmmakers. Baird was also called in by Warner Brothers to re-edit another Stallone action movie, Demolition Man, in 1993 for the same reasons. After Baird was brought in by Warner Brothers to improve the movie in the editing room, he hired Hubert D. Laborori to edit the film and Harold Faltermeyer and Gary Chang to compose the music. Chang provided additional music near the end of the movie because Faltermeyer could not return to rescore the final reel of the film, which was constantly being edited due to ongoing complaints from Warner Brothers. Because of the extensive re-editing, some plot points and even some action scenes were deleted. The theatrical trailer was made using the footage from one of the earlier cuts of the movie. This is why it shows some deleted and alternate scenes, which were changed or cut from the movie during the re-editing, which include an alternate cut of the scene where Tango and Cash first meet in the warehouse, an alternate cut of the shower scene between Tango and Cash, a deleted or alternate fight scene between Cash and a Chinese assassin, during which Cash says, "I hate you karate guys," and a deleted scene in which Tango is reading the newspaper and then pulls out a shotgun and shoots at a car. The trailer also shows extra shots from other scenes. So I do remember there being stuff in the trailer that I didn't remember being in the movie. When you go back and watch the original trailer, there's, a few things like, I don't remember that in the movie, but that's pretty commonplace for early trailers anyway, especially back then.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And now these messages.
Now playing on a cell phone near you. A show for all the manly men out there, where guys talk about their favorite movies and what they can teach us about being a man, featuring the coolest guests.
Murder somebody is not like killing an ant.
The most gratifying laughs.
It's Tombstone, what can I say?
And a fresh take on movies like you've never heard before.
This will be the thing that gets written on his proverbial tombstone.
We aren't here to criticize the movies you love, but to praise them for how they apply to our lives as husbands, fathers, and really all men in general. So buckle up your seatbelts, because Manly Movies is here. Subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or your other favorite podcast catcher. And remember, man up.
Curious about lip filler? Whether you want a subtle pout or bold plump, Juvederm lip fillers can give you a customized lip look. Juvederm Volbella XC and Juvederm Ultra XC can last up to a full year with optimal treatment, giving your lips added volume for smooth, natural-looking, and long-lasting results. Whether you're concerned about your thin lips or simply want fuller lips, ask about Juvederm lip fillers at your next appointment with your licensed specialist. And download the Ally app, that's ALLE, the official loyalty program of Juvederm, to save on treatments. For important safety information and to find a licensed specialist, visit Juvederm.com. That's JUVEDERM.com. Not for people with severe allergic reactions, allergies to lidocaine, or the proteins used in Juvederm. Common side effects include injection site redness, swelling, pain, tenderness, firmness, lumps, bumps, bruising, discoloration, or itching. There's a risk of unintentional injection into a blood vessel, which can cause vision abnormalities, blindness, stroke, temporary scabs, or scarring. Talk to a licensed specialist to find out if it's right for you.
Experience a progressive lens engineered with AI from Essilor, powered by individual measurements of your visual behavior. A lens personalized to you by an Essilor expert. Discover Verilux XR Track and enjoy instantly sharp vision in motion and seamless transitions from near to far. Find your local Essilor expert today at Essilor.com.
All right, jumping into casting, Sylvester Stallone and Kurt Russell, I've covered on other episodes, so I don't really need to go into their filmography, but you can go back and listen to our episodes about First Blood or Rambo First Blood Part 2 for Sylvester Stallone. For Kurt Russell, you can go back to episodes like Big Trouble in Little China, The Thing, and one of our favorites, The Best of Times, him and Robin Williams. I will say that Kurt Russell was originally considered and offered the role of Martin Riggs in Lethal Weapon, but he turned it down and it went to Mel Gibson, with whom he worked on Tequila Sunrise in 1988. His character in this film was loosely based on Riggs. After accepting this role, Kurt Russell was offered the male lead in Bird on a Wire in 1990, which would have cast him opposite his real-life partner, Goldie Hawn. However, as the filming schedules conflicted, he was forced to turn it down, but suggested his Tequila Sunrise co-star, Mel Gibson, for the role. The producers then asked Gibson to accept it. So once again, the Mel Gibson, Patrick Swayze, Kurt Russell connection goes full circle.
Oh yeah. And I think, talking about Stallone and Kurt Russell, like Stallone, like I'm always going to be up for watching anything with Stallone in.
Oh
like,
yeah.
To me, people argue about, who the better action star is between Stallone and Schwarzenegger.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, man, the Rocky story alone, how he made that movie and basically just, this is how it's going to be. And like, to me, that makes him the GOAT. Like,
right.
You don't mess with Stallone. It's like, he's my favorite action star in anything that he's in. And like, I love it. I'm always down for some Stallone. And I know you've talked about him at length before, but I'm a huge fan, and Kurt Russell as well, which we discussed in earlier episodes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like really the comparison between Stallone and Schwarzenegger because they made different choices, and and there's another podcast that talked about could you, like, they did an episode like replacing Stallone in a Schwarzenegger role and vice versa. Like if they would, pick it, and it was interesting, but it was like, yeah, but it's hard because they took they're different actors and different, they both make good action movies, but they're different. Like Stallone has a style and I think there's a certain message or a certain story that he wants to tell. Like it's not, for the most part, it's not just about the action. Like you said, like a movie like Over the Top, it's going to have some sentiment to it. Even like First Blood, it is an action movie, but it's really a drama, and he wanted to approach it that way. The sequels, not so much, but in that one, that's what it was. Same thing with like Rocky, but Schwarzenegger, I think he did a lot more sci-fi kind of stuff, which Stallone really didn't do until the 90s. So it's hard to really put those two, they're not apples and apples just because they were, physique, bodybuilder type, action stars, didn't mean that they should be, viewed in the same way with their movies. But
Stallone leans more into the drama. Like Rocky, it's a boxing movie, but
for sure,
come on, dude. Rocky is a love story more than anything. And I feel like Schwarzenegger leans more into the comedy side.
Very
of it.
true.
So he does a lot of comedy.
So yeah, that's true. Like he's the one that started with the one-liners after his kills and stuff. Like that was really a Schwarzenegger thing that Stallone kind of copied, because it became like everybody started doing that at that point. So, but we'll be covering Schwarzenegger in a couple of weeks. We do The Running Man, so I'm looking forward to that one too. That's one of my favorites. But so just for fun, so we may have mentioned this before, but we'll do it again. Do you have a favorite Stallone movie? Like which is your favorite of the Stallone filmography? Would be at the top of your list?
Oh, it'll always be Rocky, man. That one just takes the cake for me. And my second favorite is going to be Rocky 4.
Of course.
And I like the director's cut. It's just a totally different movie. This is up there. This is probably my number 3, and then Over the Top and Copland. So
okay,
have you seen Copland?
Really good. I have. Yeah, it's been a long time, but I saw it when it shortly after it came out on video, because it got so much buzz about one of his greatest roles. It's hard for me with Stallone because I've seen so many. I'm a big fan of Cliffhanger. Like I really like that movie a lot. Rambo 4 is probably not Rambo. Rocky 4 is probably like one of my favorites. The first one is great. The second one is okay. The third one I saw the third one first as a kid, so that one has that's sentimental to me because that was the first Rocky movie I saw. But 4, I remember being in the theater and just being so drawn into that movie and like the soundtrack and everything. Like I had the soundtrack on cassette. I used to play the songs in my room, and it just that one's tough to beat.
Living in America.
Yeah. And then of course the Rambo movies. Yeah. So it's hard for me. What about Kurt Russell for you? Favorite Kurt Russell movie? This is the hardest one for me.
It's got to be Tombstone.
It does. It does.
I could say a lot. Big Trouble in Little China is great. Death Proof, The Thing. Like he's a lot of great films, but man, it's just Tombstone takes the cake for me. Like 100%.
Yeah. Kurt Russell has that range where he's so good in comedy, thriller, drama, action. Like he's one of those actors that can do it all. So it's hard to really. It's like you'd have to say, what's your favorite comedy Kurt Russell movie? And it's like, oh, it would be like, Big Trouble in Little China or Captain Ron or, something goofy. But, action movie, Best of Times. Yeah. Or if it's action, then it would be like Escape from New York or, or this, like Tango Cash. But then you're like a drama, a movie like Miracle, Tombstone. So it's like, you got to tell me which type of Kurt Russell movie I'm grading. Or right. All right, let's jump into the rest of the cast. So we've got the big bad Jack Palance as Perret. I think it's Palance or Palance. I don't know how to say it. I said Palance when I was little, but I think it's Palance. But anyway, he played a variety of both supporting and leading film roles, often appearing in crime dramas and westerns. Beginning in the late 1950s, he would work extensively in Europe, notably in a memorable turn as a charismatic but corrupting Hollywood mogul in Jean-Luc Godard's 1963 film Contempt. He played the title character in the 1973 TV film Bram Stoker's Dracula, which influenced future depictions of the character. During the 80s, he became familiar to a new generation of audiences by hosting the television series Ripley's Believe It or Not from 1982 to 86. I remember that show. His newfound popularity spurred a late career revival, and he played high-profile villain roles in the blockbusters Young Guns in 88, Tango and Cash in 89, culminating in his Oscar and Golden Globe winning turn as Curly in City Slickers. Jack Palance jokingly showed his displeasure about filming this movie while on the Tonight Show with Jay Leno in 1992. He said that when he first got the script, he was really excited about doing the movie since he had 3 nice scenes with Sylvester Stallone. But as soon as filming started, all of his scenes with Stallone were cut, and he didn't even see Stallone throughout the entire movie, which they sort of have an encounter, but maybe they filmed it, separate because they don't really stand face to face in the movie that I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you think? Jack Palance was a good villain?
Oh yeah, for sure. I haven't seen a whole lot. I mean, I don't think he really did much as far as starring roles.
No.
But I really liked him in Young Guns
Mm-hmm.
and Shane,
Mm-hmm.
the old Western.
Yeah.
Of course, City Slickers 1 and 2, and then of course Batman, which
Batman. Yep.
Smaller role, but yeah. He always does a good job in whatever he's in. So
it's that voice. He's got that Christopher Walken kind of the way he talks is like it's so recognizable, but especially as a villain, like because of that, the way he speaks, it just comes across that way of being, I gotta tell you, that kind of thing. I always think about, our favorite thing for this is Tango and Cash, Cash and Tango.
Think of me as someone who doesn't like you very
much. Yeah. Yeah. Great writing there, guys. Great writing. Yeah. So I got a story about the mice too when we get there, but I think that's later down. But yeah, but I mean, I loved him in City Slickers. That's probably my favorite of his. But yeah, he's great in Young Guns. He's a great villain in Young Guns. He's a good villain in this one. He was good as Grissom in Batman. All right, so next in the line we got Terry Hatcher as Catherine Kiki Tango, best known for portrayals of Lois Lane on the TV series Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman from 1993 to 1997. She also played Paris Carver in the James Bond film Tomorrow Never Dies in 1997. She was Mel Jones and the Beldam in Coraline in 2009, which was animated. And of course, Susan Mayer on the television series Desperate Housewives from 2004 to 2012. So the part of Tango's sister was originally meant to be played by Daphne Ashbrook. Tango's sister was, in the initial plans, not meant to be biologically related to him, rather an adopted sister or a child his parents had fostered. However, when the filmmakers decided that the character would actually be a blood relative, they recast her with Terry Hatcher, who it was agreed bore a closer resemblance to Stallone. Both Ashbrook and Hatcher were largely unknown actresses at the time. Hatcher would go on to great success on TV with, as we mentioned before, Lois and Clark, and later Desperate Housewives. Ashbrook, meanwhile, has been a TV actress for years, finding her best role opposite Paul McGann in the 1996 Doctor Who TV movie. So you would know who she was. Because when I first saw Daphne Ashbrook, I have no idea who that is. I looked at her picture and was like, she looks vaguely familiar, but yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed I haven't seen any movies that she's been in. She's been in like 20-something movies. And
yeah.
But no, I can't imagine anybody but Terry Hatcher in this role.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked her in this. I liked her in the 007 movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, how can I say anything other than Lois Lane? I mean, that's her role.
Yeah. I wasn't a big Desperate Housewives watcher, so I didn't really know her from that. And I can't really say I was a big Lois and Clark watcher, but I watched enough of that to really know that's how I knew who she was. But yeah, so I think even like after that had been out And then I went back and rewatched this. I was like, oh, I didn't even realize, I'd forgotten that she was in it. Like she's, not say unrecognizable, because she was so much younger and a totally different character than she played in those other shows. It was like, oh, okay. Yeah. I forgot that was Terry Hatcher there. So, all right. Some kind of smaller roles for sure in the movie, but people that we would recognize or I thought were recognizable. So we'll go down this list. You've got Michael J. Pollard as Owen, the weapons engineer who provides firearms, shotgun boots, and later the armored RV. He was best known for his role as C.W. Moss in the film Bonnie and Clyde in 1967, which earned him critical acclaim along with nominations for an Academy Award. Other notable appearances include The Wild Angels in 1966, Hannibal Brooks in 1969, Little Foss and Big Halsey in 1970, Dirty Little Billy in 1972, American Gothic in 1988, and he was also in Scrooged, also released in 1989.
I can't really place him in Scrooged, but I definitely remember him in Bonnie and Clyde.
Yeah, in Scrooged, he was one of the homeless guys that had the watch, the little stopwatch. And
okay,
he found him frozen under in the sewer area, or whatever. So yeah, that's what I remember. But I remember him from this with the the little, hey guys, just checking in on you to see what's going on with the car. You're not gonna get a scratch on it, are you? Just totally there for comic effect for sure.
Oh yeah.
So next we've got Brian James as Quinn, Perret's ponytailed Cockney henchman and courier. He portrayed Leon Kowalski in Blade Runner and also appeared in Southern Comfort, 48 Hours, another 48 Hours, Silverado, Red Heat, The Player, and The Fifth Element. He was frequently cast as an antagonist, appearing more frequently in lower budget horror and action films and TV shows throughout the 80s and 90s. He appeared in more than 100 films before his death in 1999 at the age of 54. It's kind of sad, but when he was originally hired to play Requin, it was a very small role with only 2 lines. In an effort to give the character something that would make him stand out, James decided to speak in the horrible Cockney accent. Sylvester Stallone loved it and rewrote the script to give him a much bigger role. So, but yeah. I remember his being like a henchman in a ton of movies. So.
Yeah, that accent was just perfect for this movie too. So. But yeah, I recognize, like Fifth Element, his role in that, and then Blade Runner.
Yeah. And then with a nice little Big Trouble in Little China connection, James Hong as Quan, the Los Angeles Triad leader and associate of Peretz. We talked about him in other episodes, but I'll mention he was in Soldier of Fortune in 1955, Flower Drum Song in 1961, Chinatown in 1974, The In-Laws in 1979. He was in Airplane in 1980, True Confessions in 1981, Blade Runner in 1982, Big Trouble in Little China, Wayne's World 2, Balls of Fury, and R.I.P.D. in 2013. So, but I mean, he's been in, his filmography is outrageous. He's been in so many different movies. You can't even, I just scratched the surface, but
it's a small role in a lot of things. The voice, you can recognize his voice and stuff like Kung Fu Panda.
Yeah.
He was in Hero. And then more recently, he was in Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yep. All right, and then Robert Zadar as Face, the psychotic convict who has this particular grudge against Tango for breaking his ribs, his leg, and his jaw. Best known for his role as Officer Matt Cordell in the cult horror film Maniac Cop from 1988 and its 2 sequels, as well as his appearances in Tango and Cash and Samurai Cop. He worked mainly in low-budget B-movies and direct-to-video features, but occasionally in mainstream Hollywood films and television. Due to his cherubism, a medical condition resulting in a large jawline, he had a unique and easily recognizable look with a slightly sinister appearance, which aided his career as he usually portrayed villains, which makes a lot of sense.
You broke his jaw?
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
Right. He deserved it. He wasn't being very nice or whatever it was.
I was having a bad day.
I was having
This is actually the only movie that I've seen him in.
Yeah. I haven't seen Maniac Cop or Samurai Cop. I forget that he calls him Conan twice, which was like, was it a dig at Schwarzenegger, which I thought was kind of funny. Then you've got Roy Brocksmith as FBI agent Davis. His nerdy, pudgy appearance and mannerisms made him perfect for comic roles, particularly in the late 80s and 90s. Among his more prominent roles are Dr. Edgemar in Total Recall, a police sergeant possessed by Bill in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, Principal Michael Oslo in Picket Fences, and jovial mortician Irv Kendall in Arachnophobia.
Yeah, I hadn't seen a whole lot of his stuff. He was also in Scrooged.
Mm-hmm.
But Hudsucker Proxy, it's a small role in that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was definitely one of that guys. Like, I've seen this guy in like other stuff, but it wasn't a name that I definitely recognized offhand.
Right.
All right, so I got a few more here. We've got Phil Rubenstein as Matt Zakowski, the assistant warden when Tango and Cash are in prison. Born in the Bronx, New York, he guest starred on numerous television programs, including Barney Miller, Taxi, Remington Steele, The Jeffersons, Archie Bunker's Place, Alf, Who's the Boss, Hill Street Blues, and Silver Spoons. He also appeared in films such as Mannequin, My Mom's a Werewolf, RoboCop 2, Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, and Back to School.
Yeah, I've seen some movies that he was in, but I just could not place him in any of them.
Very small roles. Very small roles.
For sure.
I think when he popped up, I remembered him more from TV stuff than the movies, because he was always in like a lot of those TV shows just as bit guest parts.
Yeah.
So probably one of my favorite roles is Clint Howard as Slinky.
Knew you were going to say that.
Of course, he's the second son born to American actors Rance and Gene Howard, and younger brother of actor and director Ron Howard. His 200-plus acting credits include movies such as The Waterboy and Apollo 13, as well as television series such as Cowboys, My Name is Earl, and several entries in the Star Trek franchise. He has also appeared in many of the films directed by his brother Ron Howard. But yeah, that scene with the Slinky is just hilarious.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, you usually see him show up in some kind of role in one of Ron Howard's movies. Yeah. From Night Shift to Backdraft, Cocoon, like you just see him all over the place.
Yeah, just usually like a small, very small role, almost like a cameo, just something to have him there. So that was fun. And then Michael Jeter as Skinner, the sound engineer. I know him from roles like The Fisher King and The Green Mile from 1991 and 1999. His other notable film roles include Zelig in 83, Miller's Crossing in 1990, Sister Act 2, Back in the Habit in 93, Air Bud in 97, Mouse Hunt in 97, Patch Adams in 98, Jurassic Park 3 in 2001, Open Range in 2003, and The Polar Express in 2004. He also appeared on Sesame Street's Elmo's World as Mr. Noodle from 2000 to 2003.
I hadn't really looked at it, but I knew what I was watching. I was like, man, I've seen him in something recently. And it was, I showed Air Bud to our kids.
Oh, really? Okay.
A couple of months ago. And they really liked it. But yeah, he plays a really, really bad guy in that. So,
And last on the list is Jeffrey Lewis as Captain Schroeder, Tango's commanding officer. He was someone that I knew, like when I saw him, like I've seen this guy. Like I know, another that guy. He's appeared in TV series including Bonanza, Gunsmoke, Mannix, Mission Impossible, Cannon, Barnaby Jones, Mork and Mindy, The Golden Girls, Lou Grant, Mama's Family, Magnum P.I., The A-Team, Murder, She Wrote, The X-Files, Little House on the Prairie, Highway to Heaven, Starsky and Hutch, Walker, Texas Ranger, and Law and Order, Criminal Intent. His film credits include such movies as Down in the Valley, The Butcher, Maverick, and When Every Day Was the 4th of July. He's worked frequently with actor-director Clint Eastwood in several films, including Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, Pink Cadillac, Any Which Way You Can, Bronco Billy, Every Which Way But Loose, Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, and High Plains Drifter. So, yeah, I'd seen him in probably 50% of the things I just listed, but it didn't know his name. But yeah, as soon as I saw him, I was like, I know who that guy is. So.
Definitely remember him in High Plains Drifter and Maverick as well.
Oh yeah, I love Maverick. That's another fun movie.
Such a good movie.
Yeah, and we're not talking about the Top Gun Maverick. We're talking about Maverick, the Western comedy with Mel Gibson, Jodie Foster, and James Garner. Yep. So.
Yep. Which Top Gun Maverick is a great movie too.
Yes. It's not the same thing. All right, let's talk about iconic scenes, favorite scenes. First of all, iconic scene. If someone said Tango and Cash to you, what's the first scene that comes to mind?
The zip line.
Oh yeah.
When they jumped off the building and grabbed onto that power line and then just hooked the belt up to it and
slide down.
That and when they both jump from one building to the other.
Oh yeah,
and both roll like it's coordinated, like
choreographed, yeah.
It was just like a perfectly choreographed scene. I don't know if they did those stunts or not, but it was beautiful.
Yeah. I think for me, I think of the RV. Like, I love the truck RV. So like when them driving through the maze, quote unquote, in the pit. That's I think I just all the explosions, the action, that's like the peak action scene. So that's the one that I think of first. And then probably the scene of them interrogating Ponytail with the grenade on top of the building. So that scene always comes to mind. So what about favorite scenes? What's your favorite scenes in Tango and Cash?
Well, the RV scene is one of my favorites as far as it might be my favorite, especially like for entertainment value, because that's where you get, a good chunk of the one-liners was in that tanker, that armored car or whatever.
Yeah.
Like when he said, "I've got good news and bad news."
Yeah.
Which one do you want first? The bad. We're almost out of gas. Okay, what's the good news? We're almost out of gas.
Yeah.
So good. That's one of my favorites. But then I also like it towards the end when they're just about to go after the guy who framed them, and where they're kind of having this little heart to heart, And, Tango tells Cash that he's the best cop he ever worked with, and then Cash returns the favor by telling Tango that if he gets out alive, he's going to date his sister.
Right.
But it's cool though, because he's just being a man about it. It's like, look, I'm going to date your sister. But then when Tango tells him that the reason that he doesn't want him to date her is because he doesn't want her to get this 2 a.m. phone call telling her that something bad has happened. So that's just a cool little little smidget of drama of emotion in this film.
Right.
That just that's one that I always remember as being like a kind of a connecting point for me. So
Oh yeah. I think my favorite scene is the whole sequence of them breaking out of the prison. Like, that is probably one of the best, for me, the best scenes in the movie, even more so than the big action-packed ending with the maze and all that kind of stuff, which that's one of the things, like, going back and watching it, it does feel a little disjointed from the rest of the movie. Like, it's so over the top and so big. It's like, did you really need all that? But, once again, the studio that's what they wanted. But that breakout from the prison scene is so well done. And, Cash thinking he's being led the right way. Then the assistant warden body comes floating down, and then, he's about to be caught. Then Tango shows up and gets him through the fans. Then they make it to the top, and they think they're about to get free, jumping on the wire. And then, of course, Jaws, or Conan comes back and has his fight with Stallone. And then, just that whole sequence is just, good, thrilling sequence in the pouring down rain, which adds another element to it. So, yeah, all that was really good. Talking about
to me, that's the best action sequence in the entire film.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
It's just everything's done so perfectly. Like, it's great.
Yeah. But going back to funny lines, like one of my favorite lines is when they first get to the prison. He's like, they think they're going to this like soft prison, and they open up. It's like, I don't see a golf course on this one or whatever. And then, they have their scene in the shower or whatever. And then, like, they're not going to put us in general population. They never put cops in general population. And they're walking through, and like, there's just flames of newspaper and like everything coming out. He's like, you know what I hate? What? Litter. Like, it's like such a corny and stupid line, but it makes me laugh every time I see it. It's just like, well, that's the funny lines. So
we're at the very beginning when he says, "Oh, do you think you're Rambo?" He's like, "Rambo is a pansy."
Yeah. Yep. Which is good, that's good on Stallone to kind of, he can make fun of himself. He could take his own jab.
Oh, yeah.
And now these messages.
What seems to be the problem, pal?
There's just so much pain in the world, so many issues. I don't think I can bear it.
Hell, friendo, it sounds like you could use a dose of pop culture roulette.
Pop culture roulette? What's that? Some sort of pop culture themed podcast or something?
That's right, sonny boy. When hope seems far, dive into some PCR.
But I already get my entertainment news from Variety.
Huh, that's pretty good. If you're a chucklehead, PCR gives you news you need, condensed, unfiltered, and raw, from three nerds who know a little something about something.
Wow, okay, sign me up.
That's the spirit. Pop Culture Roulette. New episodes every Monday, available on all major podcast directories.
All right, well, let's jump into some scenes and trivia, because when you mentioned that, that's the first one I have. So the scene where Tango faces an oncoming truck with nothing but a gun was borrowed from Police Story in 1985, where Jackie Chan performed that stunt. As a response, Jackie Chan would later reference the makeshift zipline prison escape moment seen in the third installment of the Police Story series Super Cop in 1992. So I thought that was pretty cool that, they've got it borrowed from Jackie Chan and then he took something from them for his movie. But two great scenes. When he's chasing the tanker, I'm like, yeah, this was Fast and Furious before there was Fast and Furious. Like, let's see this. Fast and Furious got all their ideas from the first 5 minutes of this movie. So, but yeah. So Tango's call sign by the dispatch is 20 William 12, the same call sign used by Martin Riggs in Lethal Weapon. There were a few little homages to Lethal Weapon in the movie. That was the one that was probably the most obvious. Jack Palance came up with the idea of his character's use of rats during a visit to an LA petting zoo with his grandchild several weeks before filming. The director and cast were surprised when he turned up for the read-through with 2 rats in a briefcase. No one was keen on the use of the rats metaphor, but Palance had already had the rat maze table made at his own expense, so they felt they couldn't challenge him on it.
Power move.
Yeah. And then when he keeps smelling the rats, I'm like, he must have, shampooed them really well because he likes to smell the rats.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. But, he was trying to add something to the character. I'll give him some credit for that. While filming the scene in the back of the SUV and it catches fire, the flames would not go out when filming was over. Kurt Russell and Sylvester Stallone were caught in a cross draft. Stallone was so close to the fire that his hair was singed in certain places.
Total foobar.
Yeah. This was one of the first American movies to get a wide release in the Soviet bloc countries after the fall of the Berlin Wall. Bootleg VHS tapes became hot sellers in Russia. Brian James once claimed he never felt more like a celebrity than when he was swarmed by crowds of people in Ukraine who recognized him as one of the movie's villains.
I'm sure Konchalovsky had a lot to do with that.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. With good old American action, they were probably ready to see some good old American action movie.
So. For sure.
All right. Any other scenes we want to talk about before we wrap it up?
That scene where Terry Hatcher's character is massaging Cash on this couch.
Right.
And Tango walks in on it and thinks that they're doing something else. Like
right.
That's great. And then he sees somebody outside and he tackles him, and it turns out to be his captain.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. And so where he said, we only have 11 minutes. He said Raiders scored 3 touchdowns in 11 minutes. Yeah, but they had 3 timeouts.
Exactly. Yeah. I do like in the court scene, the whole trial thing gets done very quickly with a lot of like newspaper clippings or, headlines and stuff. But I do like when they're every time the witness, I have a different witness get up this lying or whatever, and they have the little quips about, remind me when this is over to yank out that guy's teeth. It's like, yeah, with a bulldozer or whatever. Like they're little quips back and forth, really funny. It was like,
in the courtroom where he's like, I think we need to pay this guy a visit. He said, I'll bring the chainsaw. I'll bring the beer.
The beer. Yeah, exactly. Like those little things were like really were cool, funny. It's like, and that's one of the challenges, I think with buddy cop movies where this one didn't quite stick the landing as well as others did. I'm not taking anything away from the movie, but they jump back and forth so much from being like they're getting along to not getting along. And that the courtroom scene is one of the key ones because they have those moments where they're kind of like joking, like buddy, like making the quips. And then they have that scene where, when they've been given a deal and Tango's like, I want to talk to Cash first. And they have that, and they're like, and they're back to kind of being the rivals again. It's like, come on, guys, pick an emotion, like one or the other. Like, are you friends? Are you enemies? But I guess it's part of like the yin and yang of the character's development. But yeah, I like the courtroom scenes were fun.
I mean, every time I watch a buddy cop movie or something like that, it always reminds me of Butch and Sundance, which was the very first buddy movie. And I feel like every character, every buddy film after that, like the characters are basically based off of Butch and Sundance. Like, so
right.
The one line where he says, where the guy was like, Officer Cash held a chair against my head, and he says, I couldn't find a piano.
Right. And I love when he's like, the guy speaks English, come on, like he gets tired of hearing him with the translator. I was like, man, yeah. Oh man. Yeah, can we talk about that room? Like, why is there a table and chairs in like a locker room / bathroom? Like, it's just like the weirdest room.
So weird.
Like, what are you doing in here? It's like, like international relations. So yeah.
A lot about this film doesn't make sense, but it's okay.
Yeah, exactly. We're not here to explain it. We're just here to talk about it. So all right, let's hit box office and critical reception and wrap this thing up. So Tango and Cash opened on December 22nd, 1989, and during its opening weekend, the movie grossed $6.6 million and ranked number 2 at the box office. It couldn't knock National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation from its second week at number 1. Even though the film ended up being labeled as one of the top 25 movies in the box office in 1989, its inflated budget meant it was only just profitable. The film ultimately cost $54 million, an unusually high price tag at the time, and movies typically have to earn back twice its budget at the box office in order to break even. So yeah, it was a hit, but because the budget was, got blown so much, it wasn't a blockbuster as they had hoped it would be, but still a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Critical reception, Rotten Tomatoes, 31% on the tomato meter, which is crazy. 52% audience score, which is still too low for me. IMDb, 6.4 out of 10 with viewers and a 41 on Metacritic. So on a scale of 1 to 10, where does it rank for you?
Oh, for me, this is a 10. If I'm putting on my critic hat, I mean, I'm probably going to be in the, I'm going to fall into that 4 to 5 ratio.
Okay.
I mean, because there's a lot going on.
That's a hard fall from 10.
Yeah, there's a lot about it that's just like, it's just way out of proportion. It is over the top, to use a Stallone reference.
Yeah, pardon my pun.
I mean, I might say 6 because you got to include entertainment value in that. So, but for me as a viewer, it's a 10 all day. Like, love it.
Yeah,
in my all-time top 50 probably.
Yeah, I don't think I can give it a 10. I would give it a 9 just from like pure entertainment, rewatchability. It does still have some stuff that's kind of like, a little too far-fetched, but it's highly enjoyable. So 9 is going to be there. If I put my critic hat on, I'm thinking like 6, upper 6, lower 7, probably for me. Because it could be a lot better, but it's still a lot of fun. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely higher than Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb. I'm really shocked at 52% on Rotten Tomatoes because, I mean, I think people like this movie. Like, I don't know too many people like, oh, it's trash. It's not one of those type of movies, but I think it's well beloved by those that saw it, especially when it came out, and appreciate it for what it is. So.
Yeah, I feel like that audience score is just way, way too low. I mean, I understand the critic scores, but 52% audience score, like, come on now.
Yeah. And this was a rare one where the Metacritic is actually higher than the tomato meter. because tomato meter is 31% and a 41 on Metacritic. Usually Metacritic is like way lower than tomato meter. So very interesting, but still a fun one. A good movie to watch. Great for action-packed August. Great anytime, but just one of my favorite Stallone movies for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, JB,
and
thanks. Go ahead.
It gave us one good thing that I use on the reg is FUBAR, which I said it earlier too. So,
yep. And we unfortunately we cannot say on this podcast what that stands for. But if you've seen the movie, you know. This was my first time hearing it, and my friend Derek, I think we might have went to see it together too at some point. But that became like his favorite phrase to use after that.
Total FUBAR.
Total FUBAR, yeah. All right, well, thanks, JB, for joining. I appreciate it. So I know Manly Movies has kind of been on a hiatus. Are you looking to get back in the podcasting chair here pretty soon?
Yeah, I took a break. Had some family things happen, but I'm hoping to get that started back up this fall, and maybe early winter. Just got a lot of things I got to take care of first. So, yeah, I miss doing it. It's just it's very time consuming, as you know. So, but yeah, I plan on getting back into it pretty soon. So,
very cool. We'll definitely go back and check some of the episodes he's already done. He's got some good ones on there. Not just 80s movies, but some other great timeless movies. Remember the Titans, as we mentioned before, Tombstone, Tango and Cash. So go back and listen to some other episodes he's done. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap on this episode of the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. If you enjoyed listening, we would greatly appreciate it if you would take a moment and share your feedback and give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. Don't forget to hit the follow or subscribe button and help us spread the word to all your fellow 80s Flick loving friends. If you have any questions or want to chat about your favorite scenes, you can reach out to us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. You can also show your love and support for the show at buymeacoffee.com. Every little bit makes a big difference, and even $5 a month can go a long way. Be sure to visit our online store at 80sflickflashback.com and tpublic.com for some awesome 80s Flick Flashback gear and original 80s inspired designs. Thanks again for tuning in. This is Tim Williams for the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. FUBAR. Big time.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.